We've been in cyber warfare with so many different countries, specifically Russia and China, forever, at least for the last 5 years. And it's been really bad, but you don't see it. So it's like
Yeah.
out of sight, out of mind.
I think everyone has that feeling where they're like, how much does my phone know about me? Can you just tell us what you mean? Just explain 101, how are apps spying on us and what control do we have over it?
Do you know what's not convenient is getting hacked and losing your accounts, losing money, or having your identity stolen. That's not convenient. Do you know how many hours you're going to be spending trying to figure it all out after, and the worry and the fear and everything? That's not worth it to me. And no one really seems to get that until it happens to them.
Hey, welcome back to the Log Out Podcast. Today we are talking about cybersecurity, which is a personal favorite topic of mine. Now, thou shalt not judge, but I'll admit I get a little judgy about others' digital hygiene. I physically cringe when people tell me that they reuse most of their passwords or that they hop on public Wi-Fi without using a VPN. Or the worst is when they post personal details on social without realizing how traceable they are. It just stresses me out. I think only about 36% of adults in the US use a password manager or something, and so I just worry. But the judgment is probably not warranted because I honestly don't think we as a society have made personal cybersecurity as much of a conversation as it needs to be. Like in the general zeitgeist, we need to be talking about it more. Otherwise, people won't understand how critical it is. I don't think I would even care about my personal cybersecurity as much as I do if it weren't for my background. I've always leaned privacy conscious, but what really changed things for me was working in the cybersecurity industry. During that time, I think I learned enough to have the healthy amount of fear that I have today. I learned about bad actors, how they work, what their incentives are, what hackers really look like in practice, and a little bit about what is happening on the dark web. Once you learn that information, it will change you, I promise. I also learned about what businesses are doing to protect themselves. And I think anywhere that you are in the tech industry or otherwise, finance, healthcare, you name it, cybersecurity is never irrelevant. It is a constant conversation. And I find it really fascinating, but over the years, it's made me hyper aware of how I handle my own data, and then consequently deeply concerned about how casual most people are about handling theirs. I focus mostly on the commercial side of cybersecurity, so I've seen firsthand that businesses are spending billions of dollars to protect themselves every year. They know what's at stake. But do you? Do your parents? Do your kids? Just to put it in perspective, in 2024 alone, scammers and cybercriminals stole over $16 billion from everyday people. And to scare you even more, that's actually a 33% jump from 2023. If you're wondering if the explosion of AI is making that number skyrocket, the answer is yes. So yeah, I think as consumers, or humans rather, we have a long way to go. And I'm of the opinion that protecting the data of collective humanity is more important than any single business entity out there. That said, I think the lean towards business for cybersecurity conversations makes sense, though, right? Businesses have a lot more on the surface to lose when it comes to bad digital hygiene. A business can easily go under from a bad breach. Look at 23andMe. They experienced a data breach in 2023, and that was a major contributor to their recent downfall. It wasn't the only one, but that hit them where it hurt. So businesses know investing in cybersecurity just simply makes sense. For consumers, I think a lot of people don't necessarily think it's a big deal to protect themselves. They might think, oh, I'm not important enough to be targeted, or I don't have anything to hide. But the reality is that scams are getting more sophisticated. AI is making it easier to weaponize your personal info. And once your data is out there, you probably can't get it back. You do not have to be rich or famous or a business to be exploited. You just have to exist. It's also worth noting that businesses benefit when we're not concerned about our data. Our data is like water to them. It's a resource, a plentiful one, but it's finite and they do need it to do what they're doing. The AI companies that you hear about every day are nothing without publicly available data. The hackers who are most successful probably bought your data on the dark web, and the advertisers who sometimes creep you out probably purchased it from a data broker. So your data is valuable no matter who you are. But you do, in most cases, have the power to protect it. That's why I'm so excited about today's guest. Caitlin, also known as Cybersecurity Girl, is one of the few people in the space who have dedicated their work to consumer cybersecurity. She worked in cybersecurity consulting for nearly a decade. She led global cybersecurity education at TikTok, and now she's built a community of over 1.2 million followers. She helps people like you and me stay informed, protect ourselves, and actually understand what's going on. And she makes it make sense. She simplifies it. So if you're someone who cares about your data, but maybe hasn't taken that next step, I think you're going to learn a lot of really helpful information in this episode. Let's meet Cybersecurity Girl. Hi, Caitlin. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
So you are Cybersecurity Girl. Like when you type in Cybersecurity Girl into Google, your name comes up. I would love to know, when did you realize cybersecurity was your calling?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize this. I have been in cyber for like 11 years. So I've been working in cyber, was not like an influencer. I've been like in the trenches for a while. And I actually, before I started, I had no idea what cybersecurity was. I was an aerospace mechanical engineer. And when I graduated with my master's degree, I was like, I had done 3 amazing internships all at like large companies like GE and Abbott and Chevron. And I was looking for like that forever home of a job. Like I had seen my parents stay at the same kind of jobs and roles, so that's what I was assuming. And
Mhm.
every job that or internship I took, I was like, I just can't imagine myself here for more than like 5 years. I think it's really interesting, but like I think I'm gonna get bored. And my cousin, who was also an engineer, she had gone into technical consulting and she's like, you can try different things. So I was applying as a technical consultant. And when I applied at EY, they were like, hey, are you interested in cyber? And I had no idea what cybersecurity was. Like literally none.
Mhm.
I was just like, okay, sure. And I'm a yes person. I would say yes. And then I try to figure it out in the background and learn because I love learning. And I just figured if I didn't like cybersecurity consulting, I could just move on to a different technical consulting role. But in my head, similar to what most people think when they think of cybersecurity, they think of hackers. And I was like, I'm not good at coding, but I'm not going to tell this lady this because I obviously wanted the job. And so I was like, we're gonna try it. I talked to my parents. They're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure like this is a new thing. Like you should really kind of go for it. And I learned everything on the job, which is one of the reasons why I you know, decided to start this channel was because everyone, whenever I said, oh, I work in cyber, they're like, oh, you must be some freaky genius. You're going to hack into my phone. And I'm like, that is literally the farthest from what I do. And so that was one of the main reasons why I started the channel. But yeah, I mean, I realized cybersecurity was my calling because, like I said, I get bored really easily, and cybersecurity is constantly changing. You have to keep like
Okay.
reinventing yourself and, learning new things, new areas. And that's what always kept me there. Like it keeps me here because it's so cool. Like you can never learn something and be good for the rest of, even the year. Like you have to constantly learn and love learning. And that's why I've always been so entertained with cybersecurity. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. But uh, it's just such an amazing thing. And then with Cybersecurity Girl specifically, like I said, one of the reasons was to just demystify to the public what cybersecurity was as a career. Like no one understood what it is. And we also need so many more people, all types of people to get into cyber. Because like I said, I don't code and I've been in cyber for now 11 years. And so it was to demystify what cybersecurity was, really get more like diversity, specifically women in cyber, so they could see themselves in this career. And then the third was also to educate the general public. And I will say, I didn't really realize how important the third pillar was until I started really getting into it. The main
Mhm.
goal was to just get more people into cyber, and then I kind of just kept growing from
Okay. Yeah, because you're always publicly just sharing all of these great tips and warnings, and you just kind of give it out all, you don't gatekeep it. And so what is driving you to do that? What's driving you? Do you feel like there's a knowledge gap?
Well, there's definitely a knowledge gap. I mean, so cybersecurity started out like back in 1970-ish, and it was really started to protect corporations and intellectual property for corporations, and it was started because of cyber warfare, right? We were trying not to have like Russia and China like steal our intellectual property, especially when we started moving all of our company stuff online. And so that's why it started. And I mean, also in the 70s, we never thought like people were going to start, being able to like have their entire computer on their phone and carry it around with them. So
Mhm.
cybersecurity was really started from a corporate standpoint, and it still is so corporate because of that. But I started realizing that there's literally no one to educate the general public on everything about tech and cyber and protect and data protection and just protecting themselves and their loved ones. And there's so many threats out there that it just like it was needed, and it still is needed. And so that's kind of how it started, and why I think I don't like want to gatekeep. I want to be as transparent as possible because I truly feel like there's no one out there doing this, and it like it like needs to be done. And I don't know why. There's no point of like gatekeeping. Like we all are in the same boat together. Like kids are given technology before they can speak. And if there's a way that I can like make things simple to help people, like that's all it needs. I mean, cybersecurity is really not as complex for the general public as we make it seem to be.
Hmm.
Like if you implement like 3 or 4 key basic tips, it's like a game changer and you're protected pretty much like 99% of the threats. And so as long as I continue to like keep those going and like explain in different ways and shapes depending on, the audience, like that's all like that's my goal. And also I truly feel like if you're protecting yourself from a personal standpoint, you're more empowered to protect your company as well. Because
Yeah.
from a company perspective, I don't know, do you work at like a normal 9 to 5?
Yes, yes, and I actually used to work in the cybersecurity industry, so
Amazing.
it's always been a priority for me. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a corporate perspective, all of their trainings are really like check the box trainings. You're like, oh, well, because it's like required by certain laws, etc. And they're also like not explaining to you why it's important. Like they're just trying to
Mm,
tell you to do something because they need you to protect the company. Whereas my stance is like, well, no one care. If you're not in cybersecurity, why would you care? Unless it's like a direct threat to you, and people don't have those direct threats until it's like already too late for them, like if they've already gotten breached. And so being able to explain it from a user perspective as to why it's important for them, like personally, is so much more important than like shoving it down people's throats from a corporate perspective.
hmm. Yeah, and bringing in folks and trying to motivate them to protect their businesses can be really tough. I've seen it. I've worked from the side of, how can we motivate these employees to care about their specifically password security. The password management industry was where I was. And I'm actually curious if you think that these conversations that are usually focused on businesses, that you don't really see consumers having the conversation about their personal cybersecurity as much. Do you think that there just needs to be more conversations? There should be really more questions people are asking. Or do you think securing the businesses are enough to keep everyone safe? Because usually the businesses are the ones that are harnessing the technology that people are relying on to keep them safe.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both, but I personally, because I'm biased now, I think
Hmm.
it's like the customer like or the consumer should really care about their data more than the company. I mean, who is gonna who's going to care more about yourself than you? Why would the company be really, I mean, and to be fair, the only reason why companies care is so they like avoid fines and
Yeah.
legal issues. Like they don't actually care. Like if they didn't have to, because cybersecurity is so expensive. It's an expense to every company and it's a large expense. They wouldn't want to throw so much money at this if well, they didn't need to. I'm not gonna lie. Like at the end
Yeah.
of the day, most businesses are about the bottom line, and cybersecurity is not selling anything. It's not really protecting the bottom line besides keeping you out of trouble from like legal perspective and also keeping you out of hot water if there was a data breach, because then you also lose sales.
Hmm.
Companies really don't care about you as much as you think. They're kind of like forced to care from a cybersecurity perspective. And also, like as a consumer, again, very, very basic tips like passwords and multi-factor authentication, like super, super basic tips that we make seem in our head because we've not been in cyber and no one's ever talked about it. Like it's confusing. Those, 3 or 4 basic tips are not as difficult as we make it seem. And
Right.
for some reason, like I'll give you an example. Like the news and media, like no one's grasping how important cybersecurity is, right? So I personally believe that once you train and educate people on how important it is from a personal perspective, they're gonna start realizing how important it is from a corporate perspective. But the issue is like no one understands the gravity of like how cybersecurity impacts it, like underpins everything in society. Like
Mm,
we've been in cyber warfare with so many different countries, specifically Russia and China, forever. Like for at least for the last 5 years, really, and it's been really bad, but you don't see it. So it's like out
yeah.
of sight, out of mind. And people aren't even realizing like their actions. Like, okay, for example, like if some guy that's an admin at a critical infrastructure company and he's like the one in charge of, I don't know, like water and gas, right? Like if his password is not secure, then these cyber warfare like countries can come in and just completely tamper with everything that we do. So
Hmm.
not even like it's like protect yourself, protect your government, protect like your corporations. But it starts with protecting yourself. Like, cause you don't really, you're not going to care as much when you're like, oh, protect your company. Like,
Right. Yeah, the
but
motivation, it won't be quite as strong.
yeah, no. But like the news just like doesn't pick it up. Like I hired a PR person and like there's a lot of influencers that go on like talk shows and stuff that have legitimately like not as much to offer in terms of like cybersecurity and they not there's none that go into cybersecurity, but like in terms of like, helping in general. And like no people just like don't know what to do with me. And I'm like, all I'm trying to do, give me 5 minutes to help educate your users on how to be safe. Like that's all I'm asking.
Mhm.
And like they just don't get it. They're like, it's not relevant. Like, we have elections, we have this. I'm like, you're okay. You're speaking of the elections, we're in a complete like repeat of like you say the same thing over and over again. You can't spare 5 minutes to like help your users, or like the same with like there was, all of the hurricanes, which obviously like all these are super important. But let's be real, if anyone's watching the news every day, it's the same thing over and over. Like you're not really learning, you're just like scaring your consumers. Like, why
Fear.
can't we take 5 minutes to talk about how to protect yourself in general? Like, I don't know what it is. It's a very weird world we live in, but like, I'm just trying to like continue to push out as much as possible because like the news isn't picking it up. Nothing's picking it up. And it won't be picked up until like there's a data breach. And then when they do pick it up, it's like, again, it's that fear mongering of like, all your stuff's going to be breached. Like, but it's not telling people like how to fix it and like what they
Right.
can do in the future. So
Yeah, and it's simple, oftentimes very simple fixes. Like,
very,
can we talk about passwords for a minute? Because circa 2020, I was someone who would slip unsolicited, like, password advice to people. Someone would say something, I'd say, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that.
yeah.
And I found myself kind of backing off on that a bit because if I learned anything, it's that convenience is way more of a priority for most folks than privacy is. And so, people will give up their privacy if it means it's easier to do so. But oftentimes, if you create the habit, it can be very easy. So what would you share to the audience about choosing between convenience and privacy? And maybe we don't even have to choose, because I think that's the thing that is really tempting, even if it's like, not reading terms and conditions or, agreeing to cookies because it's faster. Like, give us some wisdom, some cybersecurity wisdom there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it is. I think they're both aspects are convenient, but because we're unsure of how the other one plays out, we just like go with what we know, and what we
Mhm.
know is wrong. Like, like password managers are super super simple. If anything, it's way more. It's like way better than having the same password over and over again. And the other thing is like, do you know what's not convenient is getting hacked and like having like losing your accounts and like losing money or having your identity stolen. Like that's not convenient. Do you know how many hours you're gonna be spending trying to figure it all out after, and like the worry and the fear and everything, like that's not worth it to me. And no one really seems to get that until it happens to them. And then
Mhm.
they have advocates, which is really unfortunate because I'm trying to like people message me all the time being like, my account got hacked. And I was like, clearly you weren't listening to any of my messages. Like I can help you to an extent, but like, it's really hard to do once it's gone. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think we need to stop the narrative like of it's more convenient just to do this versus like actually be protecting yourself, because once you learn how to protect yourself, it's actually more convenient to do that. Like it
Mhm.
takes an extra second to like reject cookies. It's either accept or no. And what happens is a lot of people at the beginning when this was the thing, when you said no, you couldn't access the website. Now there's laws where they can't do that anymore. So there's no downside to pressing no. There's actually no difference in like timing when you press yes versus no, or like yes
Mhm.
reject. But people
Yeah.
just are so prone to pressing yes because they're used to it. But like stop. I mean, that's not even difference of convenience. And same with passwords. So
I think I lost you for a second there. Let's see.
it's it's actually more convenient to be protecting yourself, but because we're never taught that, and we're just so used to doing the same thing that we've always done in the past. But if we start changing that thinking, which is what I hope to do with some of my videos, then it'll make the world a lot easier and a better place,
Mhm.
safer.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned companies not, it's about the bottom line, it's about protecting. Really, it's insurance. And so you really need to care about your own data and your own privacy to be motivated enough to do so efficiently. But I do want to talk about how you feel about companies caring about data, because sometimes it's not against the law to be a little bit invasive with consumers. So, what are your thoughts on how do you decide if a company is properly taking care of their users or the purchasers of their product? There's so many different ways that company can have access to data. So really just consumers in general.
Yeah, I mean, so what happened was it's not like they all started out being like, I want everyone's data, right? Back when, the internet first came to be, we all were kind of like, sign up for everything, everything's free, every account, do everything. And like data was king back then. Like literally you wanted as much data as possible because then you're able to market, sell, etc. You could sell the data, like sell to a person and also sell the data. So it wasn't like a bad thing. Like data privacy was never a bad thing. It was like it's normal. Like it's like kind of the cost of business. When you go to a free website, they have access to your information, especially when you're like actively signing up. And like, for example, when I first started like doing my account, I was, emailing out tips and tricks, and I used a platform, and that platform was like, I only asked for like 3 or 4 key questions about people. Like I didn't, because of that, I work in data privacy. I didn't want all this data on them. But what I found out was a platform was still collecting way more data than I anticipated. So like for a small business, and you can't really fix it. It's just part of the platform. And
Mm-hmm.
from a small business perspective, like people don't know what to do with that. Like actually, to be honest, small businesses are probably the worst when it comes to data privacy because they don't have legal teams. They don't really understand. They don't have enough data where it's like going to be an issue. But the big companies, like the big Fortune 500 companies, are constantly under scrutiny because they have the most data, but they have, legal teams and governance teams and people like protecting it and making sure that it's allowed. I don't think they're trying to do it maliciously. I do think like obviously the more data you have, the better. And again, most companies, that especially the large ones that have been around forever, like they have data from like, 10, 20 years ago, and that was normal. Like it wasn't illegal. And it's only recently where the data privacy laws started coming about and people started getting educated on like now consumers have more rights to their data. Before you didn't have rights to your data. You're using a free service or collecting the data, you're inputting your own data, so you're actively giving them permission, right? But now that there's tons of data privacy laws giving consumers the ability to have rights over their own data, it's getting to be a little bit tricky. I don't think any
Mm-hmm.
company out there maliciously being like, let's collect every piece of data.
Okay.
I do think that, it helps the bottom line, it helps with sales, it helps with a lot of other stuff. And to be honest, most businesses, I would say 99% of businesses want to make money, unless they're like nonprofits, and even nonprofits want to make money and then like donate it. So it's interesting because like when you go to McDonald's, right? Even though it's cheaper, you're sacrificing most likely quality of food, but you're
Mm-hmm.
accepting. And it's the same with like when you enter your information on a site, you're kind of accepting that they're going to take your data, especially if it's a free service. And so I think there's a balance, right? Like as much as I want to be like, yes, consumers, we deserve our own data. Like businesses also have to make money, and everything that we do pretty much online is free unless you're signing up for like a protection service. And so think about, they need to have like business as usual. They need to be able to keep the lights on. Like there's only so much that they can do. So I think there's a balance. Companies act maliciously when it comes to data.
You've actually touted brands like Apple for their new security updates too, saying, hey, like, let's get on those software updates because they really are protecting you. So I'm really curious about the new Apple Intelligence features. They're kind of making the choice between privacy, in my opinion, privacy and convenience hard because we're seeing features like Apple giving you the too long didn't read version of your inbox in a single glance. That sounds great. The skeptic and risk averse side of me is saying, okay, so to do that, you have to be reading all
Every
of
email.
my emails, all of my texts. And that feels, as someone with nothing to hide, I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I even had Siri summarize a photo that someone sent me, through my headphones. And that threw me off a bit because, I didn't really realize that's Apple was really doing that. And so I kind of did because, there was a point where you can search in your photo gallery. I can search dog and all of the pictures of my dog will come up. So I knew that there was some level, but that was an alarm moment for me. So I'm curious to get your thoughts of like with all of these new conveniences, how should we weigh the trade-off between convenience and privacy? And, what's the best way to make that choice?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that's a personal issue that everyone should make because like for me, like I'm not going to have them read my emails. I don't want them to. Not because I don't trust them as a company, I just don't really want them to. If anything, like I think Apple is the most like they really value privacy, which is why I love using them so much. But like, sometimes I use a PC and sometimes I use a Mac for a computer. I mean, obviously I have an iPhone. I swear by my iPhone. But
Yeah.
there's different things for different purposes. You have to be able to understand the consequences, and I think right now most people just blindly accept a lot of things. Like Apple does give you the ability to remove a lot of stuff for apps. Like, okay, do you want this app to track you? Do you want this app to like listen to you? Do you want this app to share your locate or like have your location off when you're not on the app? But the issue is that people don't know how to even do that, or that that's even an option. So I think what like I want to do is let people know that one, that this is happening in the background. It's not necessarily Apple's fault. It's not Apple's fault at all. It's not anyone's fault. But at least they're giving you the option to say like, hey, like, this is a normal app. I use it all the time. I don't mind it having my location. I never have any of my apps track location unless it's like Uber.
Right.
Off of the app. But like you have to determine what is important to you. Now, there was also a new feature that allowed Apple to warn you or delete pictures that they thought that were like getting sent to you that they thought had nudity in it, which means that they're scanning every picture that's getting sent to you.
Wow.
And I was like, obviously, I am not comfortable. Also, like, who's just like, getting a random nude that doesn't know that, Like,
Yeah,
how would you not know that?
unsolicited.
Who gets unsolicited nudes? Like, no one, I don't know.
Hopefully no one is getting unsolicited news. We do not support that.
Yeah, no, but it was through airdrop and text messages. I'm like, that means they're literally scanning every airdrop and text message photo that's getting sent to me. And like, I don't feel comfortable with that, even if I have nothing to hide, right? Like, I would just rather err on the
Yeah.
side of caution. Everyone's like, oh, I don't have anything to hide. Totally fine. But like, is it needed? It takes 2 seconds for you to turn off that feature. And I guarantee you're not getting unsolicited nudes. Like, not guarantee. I can't guarantee anything. But
Yeah.
like, 99% sure that you're probably not getting unsolicited nudes. So, I mean, it's just interesting. I really think people need to weigh it out, but the issue is they don't even know what to weigh out or what it is happening. It
Right.
just, because again, no one's talking about it and it's only me. I feel like I'm like the only people that are like, by the way, this is happening. You should probably check it.
I'm listening. I love seeing your post on my feed because it's always something that I'm like, either I thought it might be happening and you confirm it, or I had no idea, or I'm like, yes, more people need to know this. And it's very valuable. One of the things that you've said is your apps are spying on you. So I think everyone has that feeling where they're like, how much does my phone know about me? I'm a little freaked out. Can you just tell us what you mean? Just explain 101, how are apps spying on us and what control do we have over it?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, like, again, apps are like part of our daily life. Like, I have way too many apps on my phone. But every time you download an app, right, you always get that notification saying, like, allow. And you're like, not even thinking, you're like, just give me the app. And so you press allow. I mean, I used to press allow for everything. And then it wasn't until like, 3 or 4 years ago, where I was like, oh my gosh, now they're collecting everything. They collect location, and there's always three options, right? You can have your location when you're not using the app. You can have it only have your location when you are using the app, and then you can have it none at all, like you will never share. They also have access to your photos most of the time. Like I would say, majority of apps have access to your photos, and it's the same thing. You can give them access to certain photos, which like on Instagram I do, on TikTok I do. I'm like, I don't need all my photos. I don't need them to have all my photos. And then every time I need to upload, I just like press manage and add the photo that they need. Or you can have all photos or you can have no photos. So there's always 3 or 4 options, but it's really easy to do if you go in like the settings and privacy. And then you can see like it's the camera. They have access to camera, access to photos, access to microphones, and access to locations. And a majority of the people, when you download the app, you allow all of it, right? You're never like manage, because you're not going to take that extra step and you don't even realize that it's an issue. And Most people can argue, oh, it's not an issue. Like, no one's after me. Why do we need to give all these people all of our data? We just don't. And what
Mm-hmm.
people don't realize is in the future, this data can probably be used against them. Like, say, for example, you're giving Google Maps your location constantly, which most people do. They're able to see how fast you drive, where you're going all the time. And then eventually, like, we have AI now to use that data for good. We don't even know this, but like maybe insurance companies are going to start using that data to start upping your
Mm-hmm.
insurance if they think that you're speeding. Or, I don't think people realize that. They're like, what's the point? And right now, we're not seeing any issues with giving everyone our data. But I really believe that in the future, there's going to be a lot of kind of big brother issues with like AI completely scanning your life and like assessing like how much of issues you have. So, like, even with healthcare, and I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting to think. Obviously, I, as a data privacy person, I'm very skeptical, but all of this is like very accurate and true. And so if you can just limit the amount of data, like it takes maybe 20-30 minutes, and just go in and like fix certain settings. Like, don't give every app access to all your photos, right? Like, apps that you don't use. Maybe WhatsApp you want to do because you always send photos to your friends, fine. But you don't need to give it to everyone. So the apps really are technically spying on you, because at any point in time, they can get your location, they can get your photos, they can get anything. If you have
Mm-hmm.
given them access, which it's usually blanket statement that you give them access when you first download the app.
Something that you mentioned recently was how users on LinkedIn could turn off LinkedIn training its AI on their content,
Yeah.
which I think is really important, especially for those of us who are putting in a lot of work into content creation, like yourself. I think it's a really important conversation. But I also am curious of your opinion on the automatic opting in of certain new tools, because for a lot of different platforms, AI is now, the hot new thing that every consumer facing product is working in. They're kind of sending you a terms and condition, either notification or an email, and most people aren't taking the time to actually read through it and understand what they're agreeing to.
Right.
So I guess I have a two-part question. The first question is, are you someone who reads all of the terms and conditions before you sign it? Okay, me neither.
My dad's a lawyer, and so is my brother. And I'm always like, "Oh, should I read this?" And I'm like, heck no. I'm like, I'll figure
Mhm.
it out. I can figure out like what settings they're looking at later. But yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. It's bad.
Audience tip, if it's a tool that I'm like, okay, they really could have a lot of access to things, I will sometimes just copy and paste it
ChatGPT.
into ChatGPT and be like, what am I agreeing to right now? I want to start doing that a little bit more often.
I
But
have been
then,
doing that too. Or I just look and
yeah.
say, like, this company just updated their terms of service. Can you please find it and review it and let me know if there's any red flags from a personal privacy and
Mhm.
security perspective?
Right. Would
Yeah.
you ever consider deleting an app or getting off of a platform if you felt like it actually was, going past a boundary that you're not comfortable with?
I think that's like a risk-based decision for me, probably. I mean, if it's like really bad, I would definitely be like, get it, no, like, no.
Yeah.
Um, But as of right now, I mean, I also don't download, I mean, I have a lot of apps, but it's more like business apps, and I don't download anything sketchy. And like the
Hmm.
Apple Store is also, I will say, a lot better than like the Google Play Store or any of like the Android. I don't know what
Okay.
the other stores are, because in terms of, it's really hard to get an app approved through the App Store. They have a lot of security measures in place to make sure that the app is like legit, and what it's collecting, and to really understand what you're doing with the app. Whereas I think the Google Play Store is a lot easier to get sketchy apps through. So because I don't have an Android, I have an Apple phone. I just feel like I kind of trust most of the apps on that as of right now.
And then on the phones are spying on us topic, I think most people would love to know once and for all, are our phones listening to us via the microphone specifically? Do you know?
I mean, I think there's definitely a possibility. I don't have like certainty on anything. I'm
Mm,
a skeptic just like everyone else is. Now, I will say this. A lot of people don't realize, like, when they're talking about something, your actions speak louder than words, right? So, like, say, for example, you're like
yeah.
talking about a vacation to Bermuda. You subconsciously, like, when you look at things on Instagram or whatever, you'll start looking and doing little things that end up kind of guiding any search engine back to she's looking at this, right? Whether it's like, oh, you looked at flights or you looked at like images of wherever you're trying to do, you kind of subconsciously do things without you even realizing because it's so second nature for us to pick up our phone and be like, oh, like, hey, I think we should go to the Bahamas. Like, we should check that out. And you kind of maybe go on Groupon and see if there's anything in the Bahamas, or like, you go on the ticket app site and you change the location to wherever you're going, or and I think those little cookie crumbs that you don't even realize are happening lead
Mm,
to your phone kind of knowing what's going on. Because again, people think AI is like this new thing. AI's been being used for years, at least
right.
5 years. And so that's how like marketing has improved so much. But I think people are like, oh my gosh, we literally just talked about, IVF and I'm getting stuff for babies stuff on my phone. It's like I guarantee you weren't just talking about it. Maybe someone sent you a link or you know what I mean? Like, there's so many
Mm-hmm.
factors that go into it. So take that with a grain of salt. But I also think if you have your Siri on, which I have my Siri on, I think it's convenient. Sometimes I turn it off, just depends on the day. But like if you have your Siri on, you have to be okay with it maybe picking random things up.
Right. And all of your IoT connected devices as well in your home. Like I'm a Google Home person.
Yeah.
So I sometimes wonder like, but yeah, that's great insight. What are your thoughts on incognito browsing? It's not really private, is it?
No, and that's another myth that people have is like, oh, if I go on incognito, like no one's gonna know I'm on this. And I'm like, no, incognito browser is literally, I mean, it's if it's for your use. Like I always say, okay, if you want to get your boyfriend, significant other, girlfriend, whatever, a present and you don't want them knowing and you share a computer or you're on the same Wi-Fi, that's the other thing. If you're on the same Wi-Fi, it's the same IP address. So they're gonna get ads for anything that you look up, right?
Mm,
So if you're like, oh, I want to be secretive about the gift I'm giving, I would go in incognito mode because your IP is not remembering where you go. But that doesn't mean that the sites that you're going to aren't going to remember. And yes, they
mm,
don't take as much data, but they still track who's going. And so incognito is really for your devices, like your specific, like, I don't, like, my boyfriend plays golf and I wanted to get him a present. And he comes over to my house, I go over to his house. I'm going to search for this present like multiple times, try to figure out the best costs. And because of that, he's going to probably start getting ads if I don't go on incognito mode because that IP has been going to that website and we're sharing an IP at the house. So incognito is great if you're it's more for you personally. It has nothing really to do with the actual website not remembering where you go.
And then Bluetooth, that's something that I was surprised by in some of your content. You mentioned Bluetooth. And then I learned from another source that people in politics don't use Bluetooth.
No.
So what are the risks there as someone who
What?
uses Bluetooth every single day?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm like a conspiracy theorist in the sense of I'm starting to think that Bluetooth is just really bad, like AirPods. Not AirPods, but any like
Mm,
Bluetooth headphones. I'm like paranoid about. I've been going back to like the old school and I feel like, super dumb wearing them, but I don't want to microwave my brain. Anyways, that's completely beside the point. Bluetooth is super, super easy to hack into. And every, government employee and stuff that I've said, like the first thing they say is like turn off Bluetooth, never enable Bluetooth. It's just really easy to get into. And once they're in it, say for example, you're gonna take a call, a personal private call on your Bluetooth headphones, like people can intercept that and listen to the call. So that's why
wow.
government officials can't use that. If you see a lot of government officials, they literally put headphones into their like plug it into their phone. And like even when you go abroad, right? One of the tips they always used to give me was don't ever have Bluetooth going abroad. And I was like, I mean,
Wow. That's scary.
but that's only if you're like, I don't know. It depends on like what you're doing. Like, if you're not having like really intense conversations, like again, it's a risk-based approach, but
Mm.
I would just try to avoid using Bluetooth anything.
Okay. Okay. Um, so I would love to actually talk a little bit about dating safety. I have viewers, a lot of young viewers, but whatever age you are, people are dating. And I think that I've seen a lot of practices. I've probably done things where it was risky. It wasn't very smart. And you share a lot of really helpful information for that. So first, I would love to know what information you would never share, let's say with a first date or maybe first, second, third date. This is essentially a new person, a stranger. What would you never share?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on like where you meet them too, right? Like if you're meeting them on an app or a social media, if you're actually meeting them in person, don't ever share where you live at the beginning. Don't share like your home location. Don't send a picture with like because like a lot of photos have your location on them. It's like very easy to get. I would just like in an
Mm,
open area with like a public place with people, maybe not like Central Park at night, you know, a safe public place like a coffee shop and really get to know them. Um, and the other thing is if people are sharing a lot about themselves on the first day, that's usually a red flag. Or a lot about themselves on apps, right? Like why is this person like just start questioning like why are you sharing like all this stuff? Because there's a lot of issues, right? There's dating safety for like the normal people, and then there's like online dating scams. And so
right.
for like dating safety for normal people, I would just like try to limit the data that you share. Like you can talk about like little quirks that you do or like certain things that you do, but like don't give your address, like your birthday, like you don't need to give them a lot. I will say I
Hmm.
think there's more issues with dating online scams that I've seen. But no, I don't know if like, young people really even get a lot of online scammers. I think it's more of
Mm,
like the adult population because I don't think the young people really have a lot of money to give out to scammers. But yeah, I
true.
think you just like limit what you share with them, especially until you really get to know them. Like, or like if you have a mutual friend, that's great. Like ask your mutual friend. The other thing is like I would try to FaceTime them too. Like don't waste your time. Like when I was in the
Smart.
yeah. When I was in, like, the dating world still, before I met my amazing boyfriend, like, I started realizing, like, okay, I would go on, like, coffee dates or, like, lunch dates or whatever, and I was like, "Wow, this was a waste of time." Like, I could have fixed this if I just had a FaceTime with them and, like, maybe talk for, like, 20 minutes, you know? Because like, personalities are very different on, like, messaging versus not. So,
Yes.
either FaceTime with them or, like, WhatsApp video call, I mean, if you don't have an Apple, like, that's fine too, but the other thing is, just even before you even share your phone number, like, if there's a way that you can give like a Google Voice number or not your real number,
Hmm.
that kind of takes the FaceTime thing out pretty much. But if you're kind of skeptical of this person, you're like, well, let's see how it goes. Because what people don't realize is every time you give your phone number, you give so much more detail about yourself than
Yeah,
you
you do.
provide. And even your last name, right? Don't give out your last name either because people can Google you. And especially in the US, you can get so much information. And my friend actually met someone on a boat. Like we're in Miami, so that everyone's on boats. But like she met someone on a boat. She gave him her number and he ended up being a complete crazy person. Like, I know where you live. Like, your parents and like would say her parents' name, like be so disappointed in you. I'm gonna stalk you into like crazy. Like she literally met him for like 10
Wow.
minutes and they went like insane. Like you give a phone number, you're basically giving your last name to. And when you have a first and last name, you can easily look up things. And then usually your family's all connected to that and where your home address is. So I know it seems like very stupid. You're like, oh, it's just my first and last name. What are they gonna do? They can get a lot of information on you from just
Hmm.
so until you really meet someone, I would try to there's a lot of companies out there too that kind of give you identities as well, can generate as many phone numbers as I want on a certain app. And I would just try not to give your phone number, like keep it on the app. I
Love
don't know,
that.
can you like FaceTime on apps now? I feel like you can.
I'm not on apps,
Okay.
but I feel like you can.
I feel like you can now. So just keep everything in
Yeah.
the app. Like,
And also, there's no, like, we can say, I prefer to communicate through the app for now. And maybe, you'll get my number later if someone asks. And if they have a problem with that, I think that that's a red
yeah.
flag in its
Yeah.
own. So, yeah, just babysit your information a little bit more because it's crazy out there.
Yeah, it's crazy kooks. And if anyone's
Yeah.
asking you for money and giving you a sob story after you've talked to them for 30 minutes,
No,
I would immediately run for the hills. Also, there's
immediately
a way
no.
to like reverse Google image search or reverse image search people to see if they are who they say they are. So, like, I know my
Mm,
friend told me that her mom was like just back in the dating game and she was like talking to this guy for like a couple months and the guy randomly asked for money and she was like, no, 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 no. And then she like sent her mom my video and her mom found out it was like a fake person. It was a real person. They just stole the
the
picture.
catfishing.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
catfishing. So there's a lot of catfishing on dating apps too, and there's ways that you can figure that out.
What if someone wants to know more about their date before meeting up in real life? An appropriate amount. We don't want to go too crazy.
Yeah. So I would definitely just look them up on social media.
Mm,
If you have mutual friends on social media, I would ask them. See, this is where I'm a little bit different. Everyone's like, "Oh, you must stalk your dates before you go on a date with them. And I'm like, I'm actually the opposite. I want a normal dating
Blank slate.
experience, you know?
Right.
So for me, I would literally look at their Instagram or like Facebook or whatever they have. And honestly, if they didn't have it, like my boyfriend hadn't posted in like 4 years. I'm like, is this a red flag or is this a green flag? I realized
I
it was
say
a green
green
flag.
flag. I
Yeah,
say
it was a
green.
green flag for
You
sure.
look happy.
I'm very happy, yeah. But yeah, so like it just depends. I would just do some research. But again, if you're meeting in like a public place, you're not giving them your phone number at the beginning. You're talking to
Mhm.
them, obviously, so you should know something, right? Like you should ask the hard questions. You shouldn't just be like, let's go on a date, like immediately after you
Right.
meet with them. I mean, I don't think I've ever did that, but maybe some people do. I would just get to know them a little bit. Like there's cute, clever ways of playing like get to know you games on the app.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
schedule
Talk a little bit.
FaceTime on the app too. I think you can now.
Okay, another thing that happens is that revealing photo exchanges happen. Any tips for if someone chooses to do this, that is absolutely their choice, but any tips for how people can do so safely? Because I am concerned. I've always been concerned about that, but now I'm even more concerned with deep fakes and just the general internet. It's a little bit scary. So, what are the risks and what tips do you have for people who choose to take that route?
Yeah. I mean, I would immediately say just don't do it, but it's easier for me to say because I'm like paranoid. And also
Paranoid.
I've
Yeah.
had a lot of friends that like, were dating a guy and then sent photo and then like that guy used it to like exploit them and get for money or basically threaten them to do certain things. And if you really don't know someone, I feel like if you're like married with someone, fine. I
Right.
don't think they're going to be doing anything with it, hopefully. I mean, maybe because 50% of marriages end in divorce, but hopefully not.
Yeah.
But just be careful. And if you're sending it through like, Wi-Fi, like maybe send it with a VPN. Don't like send this on like open Wi-Fi's.
Yeah. Don't send it in a Starbucks,
Yeah, don't
folks.
send it in a Starbucks, please. Or like an airport Wi-Fi. Like you'd be surprised. First of all, everyone should have enough respect for themselves. And I hope one day that we live in a world where everyone's so comfortable with themselves and have respect for themselves where they don't feel like they need to. But I totally know that everyone like wants to feel loved and appreciated and beautiful and whatever. So I know that it happens. And I will say like, not that I ever sent like crazy pictures, but like, I had long distance boyfriends and whatever. I get why people would want to do that. It's just there's consequences to your actions and you just
Mhm.
really don't know what's going to happen. Like I would just not do it.
This is a little bit of a darker segue, but according to a 2021 Pew Research Center study, 16% of women report being sexually harassed online and about 5% of men. That's only what's reported. I know lots of people who've been harassed. I don't know anyone who's personally reported it. So I do kind of feel like that number's a lot higher. And then within this landscape, image-based abuse is the particularly insidious form affecting 57% of women
Yeah.
and involving everything from manipulative photos to non-consensual image sharing. And so, we have the advice of maybe just don't send the picture at all. But sometimes these pictures aren't risky photos. Sometimes it could be a normal photo of your face and they then manipulate it to be something else. And
Mhm.
so this has opened a very big bag of worms in my brain, thinking about how to protect not just women, but also men and theys and thems and everyone. So I'm thinking about social media profiles being public. That feels more risky now than ever. Dating app matches, those who are on dating apps, when you have kind of left a situationship, we'll call it, do you really need to stay matched with that person? Maybe this is the time to start unmatching people that we're no longer interested in. These are just my thoughts, but I'm curious like what you think and how we can protect ourselves when they're not even necessarily risky photos. It's really just our face that can now be used against us.
Yeah. So regarding like the sexual like harassment online, that's like so sad to hear. I actually haven't heard about sexual harassment online. I mean, I know that it's happened. Obviously, I get tons of like, stuff. I hear more about sextortion, which is basically like
Mm,
extorting people for sexual photos. And there's like two ways of doing it, right? There's ways where this person like kind of, talks to you and gets you all excited and like asks for like sends you a photo of themselves. So you would send a photo yourself type of thing. And then once they
mm,
have a photo, they either continue to say send more photos or we're going to release this, or pay us and we won't release this. So there's like two types of sextortions. There's like more financial or asking for more pictures. And that's super concerning. I know that's happening a lot. The issue is, again, once you start sending photos with people that you don't even really know or have not met, it gets to be a huge issue. And even though they want you to trust them, I would just say, blanket statement, don't trust anyone on the internet.
Yeah.
Don't be sending photos through apps. Don't be sending photos through Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is. Really meet people and get to know them. Regarding the apps and stuff, like when I was on apps like years ago, I never actually unfollowed anyone. But I mean, maybe I would now. I don't know. You're right. I mean, it's really easy to generate photos. However, there are certain services now that like you can report AI photos too, and they'll try to take it down. I don't know how good they are because I've obviously not ever used it. But also, Meta has like a sextortion website too that you can report if you're involved in sextortion on the app, because I guess it's really prominent. And actually, it's really prominent with young boys. So boys are getting sextorted, which I would have assumed that would be more women, but it's not, because I think, it's a really weird world we're living in. But it's really sad. I just don't trust anyone online, even if they like are playing on your heartstrings. Like, wait till you meet someone in person, and even then, like, wait a long time. Like, really get to know this person, because you don't know anyone for like at least 3 or 4 months, in my personal opinion.
And then similarly, with those of us who, I'm not one, but for parents out there who are protecting their family, when it comes to family safety online, do you have any major do's and don'ts for families and parents who are trying to keep everyone safe?
Yeah, dude, it's just so hard to have a family in this day and age. I like fully recognize that. For me, I obviously don't have a family either. So like take these tips with a grain of salt, because like I've never enforced them. So like I understand that they're probably really hard to enforce. For me, if I had kids, they need to like do anything online in like a open like living room area where they're not like in their bedroom, because they can't really do like you can avoid a lot of stuff if they're on the internet in front of you, right? So
Right.
for me, I'm like, okay, we're going to have like an open area where they're going to be able to have their devices. They are not allowed to bring their devices in their room. They don't need the devices in their room, right? Why would they? If you need an alarm, you get an alarm clock. Like, what else do you need? It's not good to do before bed. So I would have like an area where they are allowed to like be on their devices and have screen time. And then I'd also make sure that all of them are on like the teen mode, or, kid mode. Like YouTube has kids, Instagram has teen mode, TikTok has teen mode. And then I would just make sure that it's open communication, right? If you are best friends with your kids, not best friends, but like if your kids trust you enough, make sure that when you say like, hey, if something feels weird, just tell me. There's like nothing wrong. You're not going to get punished. Like, you're not like, we just want to know. We want to protect you, want to help you. Because the issue that I found is like kids are embarrassed. They like kind of know what's wrong, but they don't want to tell their parents because they're scared they're going to get in trouble. Like, the other issue is like a lot of online gaming, like Roblox and stuff, is really bad for kids that get groomed by adults. And the kids think they're talking to another kid,
Another kid.
getting like literally groomed by like a 55-year-old man in somewhere in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know. And so it's like online gaming. And again, that can be pretty much prevented if it's in the living room, and you can talk to your kids like, hey, what'd you do today? Like, did you meet anyone new in the app? Did you do this? But there's also a lot of parental controls that you can put in place for your kids too. And I would just monitor, not like Big Brother monitor like every second of the day, but you can kind of monitor. You can see, Roblox transactions. I think there's like a Roblox for parents that you can see kind of what they're doing and who they're
Okay.
talking to. I'm pretty sure you can. I think it just a open communication policy, and stuff needs to be done in the house in an open area.
Okay, so I also would love to talk about employee privacy. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but I think you'd be the perfect person to ask this question. As tech advances, so does workplace monitoring, I've noticed. I think sometimes the monitoring is very valid. Both you and I know how important it is for companies to know what's happening on their devices from a cybersecurity perspective. Employees make cybersecurity mistakes. We need to know when that happens, mostly unintentionally, and businesses need to protect themselves. That said, not all of this monitoring is for the employee's well-being. Sometimes it's about productivity. It could even be something more nefarious. And so I'm wondering when you think cybersecurity monitoring then crosses the line and becomes employee surveillance, and how can employees basically kind of protect themselves from nosy companies, and what should they do to really keep things separate?
Yeah. So it's really hard to talk about this because there's no right answer. Obviously, I'm on the side of like the consumers because I've just been on the side of
Hmm.
consumers now forever. But I get it, right? Like it's like, for example, let's say the NBA, right? You're going to constantly see the players work. You're going to see the players' work ethic. Like you don't have to do anything. You're seeing it all every day.
Hmm.
Now, if a player is like not doing well, or if an employee is not doing well and they're like on a performance improvement plan, and one of the reasons why is like, I don't know what they're doing throughout the day, like they're not getting the work done that should be done in this time. I think it's very valid for a company to be like, what have they been spending hours on?
Hmm.
Just like in the NBA, you can kind of see like, okay, what has this person been training? Have they been going to workouts? Have they been watching tapes? Like you're able to see that. It's not illegal. Like your companies, it's very similar to any sports team, right? Like at the end of the day, you're trying to reach a certain goal, win a game, whatever. But I think it's valid if a company has been put on a performance improvement plan and they've been notified that they're going to have an extra set of eyes on them. I think that's totally fair
Hmm.
if you're not getting your work done. And I also believe that notification part is really important. Now, they don't need to say, we're going to be tracking and monitoring everything you do online, but I do think they can say, hey, your performance has slipped. We want to help you, get back to the normal self. We want to make sure that we're kind of monitoring, watching, and making sure you're doing what you need to do. And if you're, spending too much time on certain things, let you know. Like there's ways of doing it, but I think a lot of companies now have been using it the opposite way, right? They've been spying on employees to then see what they're doing and then put them on a performance improvement plan. You can't do that because if you did that for everyone, I guarantee you most of the people wouldn't hit what you want them to hit.
Right.
So I think it just depends. And then I also think like employees, and I don't know because I've never read terms of service. Like I haven't like read through terms of service before I started a company and I'm not there now. So maybe you can look at yours, but I'm not sure if it says it in their terms of service when you start that they're able to monitor. I do think usually it says, oh, if you're on a company computer, we can see everything that you do.
Yeah. Which you should assume.
Yeah, which you should
Yeah.
assume. But yeah, I think just like know that they're monitoring you. They're allowed to, honestly.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going on your own personal computer, fine, you're doing your own thing, but they're not going to be able to see that. But they are going to be able to see that you're not on yours, right?
Not on yours. Yeah.
So
Right.
it just depends. I think there's a better way of doing it. Like again, if you're on a performance issue, then I think they are definitely allowed to check it out and let you know that they're monitoring.
Yeah, I think be a responsible employee and then keep your personal stuff off of your work computer. But I think also for companies, it feels like the right thing to do would be to tell your employees that, to communicate, like, here's everything that we watch. And, everyone just have their responsibility to be good employees and be good, employers. But that's, my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think
Mhm.
everything's online now, right? Like that's the other issue is like during COVID, everything moved online, so it's a
Right.
lot easier to track people because like every single meeting is on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is. Whereas before you were at an office, like a lot of times, like when I worked in the office, I was on my computer like maybe half the time, but we were doing in-person meetings. We were
Meetings.
like, going to all the meetings were in person, lunches were in person. Like you're actually actively interacting with people, so you couldn't really track people at that point. Now everything is trackable.
Right. So I would love to talk a little bit about just your lifestyle as cybersecurity girl. You probably have more of a tendency to be a little bit paranoid. I know I'm paranoid, so I can't even imagine what inside your brain looks like. So I'm curious, do you find yourself constantly suspicious, or do you feel like because you have this knowledge, you feel super confident about your data? And if so, are there any like quirky or unexpected habits that you have that most people wouldn't think of?
Yeah. So I like legitimately don't click on any link. Like even if it's like on
Mm.
LinkedIn from like a follower, I'm like, I'm not clicking on that link. Like and if I do, I usually say I'm not clicking on the link. Like, what is this? Because like a lot of times people hack into other people's accounts and then they message you with like weird stuff. So like immediately I just
Mm.
avoid clicking on links. And I know I was actually talking to the head of U.S. Defense Agent, Cybersecurity Defense Agency, and she was like, you can't tell people to avoid clicking on links. Like clicking on links is part of work. And I was like, you can kind of like, I really don't click on any links immediately when I get it. Let people know I'm not clicking on it. I just copy and paste a link. I put it in like a URL checker to make sure that it's like a legit link. So I'm really paranoid with like links because I just feel like I have a big target on my back. People don't realize like hackers hack for many reasons. And one of those reasons is for fame and just like be like, yeah, I hacked into this, you know?
Right.
I don't want them to be like, yeah, I hacked into Cybersecurity Girl. She's supposed to be the most secure, you know? I just don't want that. It's like the
Mhm.
last thing I want. So I'm really paranoid about that. So I turn on multi-factor authentication with every single opportunity I have because not everything offers that. But and I try not to use a text multi-factor authentication. I use the authenticator apps, and I use like 3 different ones because if they
Okay.
get into one app, then they don't get into everything. I don't reuse my
Mm.
passwords. I use a password manager.
What's your preferred password manager?
I mean, I use 1Password. I love 1Password. I also use Keeper Security or Keeper. It used to be Keep Pass, I think, but I think they changed it to Keeper Security because they offer more than password. I use a few. Like, again, I'm very paranoid and I understand that no one's going to do. I get it. I totally get it. I also use a YubiKey, which is extra encryption
Okay.
on my computer so people can't get in. Obviously, I have a password on my computer too, but just in case, again, really paranoid. The biggest thing for me is like, I have really strong passwords. I do multi-factor authentication for everything. I would like to say I use VPN for everything. I will say that VPN makes it very difficult a lot of times to do like general work. It slows a lot of things down. It just doesn't interact well. And so a lot of times I turn it off, which I shouldn't. But I also am not on public Wi-Fi. So there's that.
Mm.
I changed
Hotspots only.
hotspots only. I changed my home router password immediately. Like, when you get the standard, you get your router and it has a standard password and no one ever changes that, you should change it.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, that seems obvious. I'm gonna do that right after this.
yeah, it seems, I mean, again, it takes a little bit of time. You have to like go on admin dot whatever, but
Yeah.
you rarely get a new home Wi-Fi, like rarely. Like unless you're moving all the time. So it takes like 30 minutes to do and then you're protected for the rest of the time and like make sure it's a strong password. You can still keep that sticker on the bottom of the Wi-Fi if you really want to, but just like change it from the standard one. And yeah, just don't click on links. Try not to click on links and really like be suspicious anytime a link comes to you. Ask if it can be sent another way. If it's a PDF document, just be like, send me the PDF. If it's like you know
Mm.
what I mean? So
And QR codes too. I don't imagine you're a big QR code scanner.
I've never been a big, it's funny because QR codes, like I've recently been in the news and actually on my business card, I have a QR code on the back. And when people scan it, it says, oh no, you've scanned a potentially malicious QR code. And that's been on
Nice.
my business card for over a year and a half because I knew that from the beginning, you don't even know where it's taking you. You don't know what URL it's taking you. It could take you to anywhere.
Mm.
And so I've just like never been a fan of QR codes. But yeah, don't spam QR codes if you can avoid
Okay.
it.
So I asked this question to all of my guests, and it is, what are you logging out of this year and what are you logging into? It's totally up to you how you interpret it.
Yeah. I would ideally like to say I'm logging out of like imposter syndrome
Mm.
because every day I'm like, how did I get here? And actually, I did this thing with ChatGPT, which is funny. You should probably do it. I don't know if you use ChatGPT a lot, but it's like my best friend.
Yeah.
There's like a thing where it says you can ask it like, hey, you know me best. What do you think I'm good at? But like, what do you think is getting in my way of succeeding in my future? And it literally said like, from all of your searches, it seems like you don't have faith in yourself, even though you have so many accomplishments. Like it seems like you have imposter. And I said this yesterday. It was
Wow.
like it's like crazy. I was like, kind of knew this, but maybe I should listen to ChatGPT. Um, but yeah, so I think I'm logging out of like imposter syndrome and like knowing that I'm worth being in the room and like I should be in the room, and then just logging into my full potential because I truly feel like I can grow this. This is not little thing for me. I want this brand to be like a household name where they're like, hey, cybersecurity told me to do this. Like this is like she told me to do this. Let's go do it. Like it's fun, easy stuff. So I just want to log into like just making my brand a household name that is affiliated with fun, understanding, and simplicity with when it comes to tech. So
You are already that to me, by the way,
thank you.
just so you know.
I appreciate it.
To a lot of people, I think.
Thanks. I mean, that's the goal, but thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. See, there's imposter syndrome. I don't think it's happening. I'm like,
See,
lady.
yeah. You are like, you have millions of followers listening, like onto your every word talking about cybersecurity. Just saying, just saying. Okay, but how can we learn more about your work? I'm gonna put all of your socials, but like, you working on anything new or like, what's the update on Cybersecurity Girl?
Yeah. So I am I'm working on a deletion service for people so they can delete their data online, which is something like all my most viral videos are about that, like helping people just like kind of clear their names. The other thing is I launched a cyber career club. So if anyone's interested in getting into cyber or like wanting to understand where to start, go to the career club. It's basically the price of 2 hamburgers. It's really cheap. I wanted it to be accessible to everyone. And on top of that, it's a place that's inclusive to every type of cybersecurity professional. I felt like there were so many training programs, but they're all geared to technical or coding. And I wanted to show people all the different areas and guide them. So that is like my baby right now is the Cyber Career Club. So follow me because that's the best way you're going to be updated, honestly. I don't even know half the stuff. I mean, I'll probably remember a lot of stuff in my head, but right now my baby is a Cyber Career Club, which is like getting people into cyber as a career. And then also building all these platforms for people to help educate them. Like I work with Nord and 1Password and a lot of other companies because I just want to get the word out. And I recommend what I use.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this wonderful wisdom. Thank you for joining us, everyone, today.
Thanks, everyone.
If you liked this episode of the Logout Podcast, you can like and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And if you need a little more, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Logout Report, with the link in the description. See you next week.